It just
Swell up a lot of the planes.
so that was the deal for me. Pick my no, but I did there. Space. I just didn't know what it but it feels nice. I didn't know what to go professionally. And stretching and everything. So yeah, that's Penny. Take all her sure. Yeah. It's I got these thieves. I just went these visits. Yes. Stuart one was like, oh, you sure? Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started now. Hi, everyone. First, I'd like to thank you so much for coming to the session. My name is Allie Quarry, and I work for ATC Advanced Technology Consulting. You'll hear more on that in a little bit. But I wanted to say welcome also. We're halfway through the 17th Taste of Technology Conference, or Taste of IT Technology First Conference. I'd also like to give a shout out, of course, to our sponsors. Without them, we can't do all of this fun stuff. Oh, looks like my clicker turned off, so that turned on. We can't do them. I've got the list of 37 if you'd like me to read them off, but I will just give you this beautiful picture instead. Save the time for everything. So for this session, I'd like to introduce you to, first on my right, I've got Nick Inger here. He is an industry-leading subject matter expert for business-critical voice, data, cloud, and cybersecurity services. He's also my boss, so tell him I did a really good job. And then on the left-hand side, I've got Michael Hennigan here. He's a senior collaboration and customer experience, CX, professional with Zoom. If you stay to the end, there's a really fun, sweet Zoom prize, but you have to stay to the end and you get it when you leave. So find Louie and Alexis, they've got it. But without further ado, I will hand it over. They're going to cover 5 factors of AI readiness.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate being here. Appreciate the warm introduction, Allie. I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you. Like Allie mentioned, my name is Nick Inger. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at ATC Advanced Technology Consulting. My role is multifaceted. Internally, I'm responsible for our entire technology stack, application stack, security stack, all the way through the organization. And then externally, that are consulting hundreds of organizations across the country at any given time in our 4 core areas. Is this working? So from a consulting perspective, we went through a strategy session last year, and it came out that our mission and vision weren't aligned with how we go to market. So just a little bit of background on ATC. Our mission is to find the exact right solution through expertise, process, and partnerships, with our vision being transformative outcomes driven by people who care. And that's a lot. That means a lot nowadays. We actually care about our clients. We care about the outcomes that we're driving through their organizations. Really excited to be here with the folks from Zoom. Did anybody catch the keynote this morning? The global CIO of Zoom? What did everybody think? Yeah, he is already on a plane. I think he's going to New Jersey and then New York and then over to Saudi Arabia. So yeah, we were very pleased to have him this morning. When we talk about Zoom, a lot of people, how many people use Zoom in their environments today? Oh, very good. All right, we got a pretty good showing there. So Zoom, we know them from a collaboration space. We know them from a meeting space, but they're doing a lot more than that. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that they do, but we're going to be doing it in a lens that talks more about how you can leverage the different tools that they're leveraging internally for your organizations. I think every one of the, is anybody tired of talking about AI yet? Like, is every talk track about AI? Yeah, so it's as I look at AI right now, it's an interesting space. It's what security was 4 years ago. It's what voice over IP was 15 years ago. A lot of people talking about it. Not a lot of folks understand it wholly yet. And AI is a tool set that covers tons of area. We're going to be speaking about how AI got started, but also how businesses can implement it to transform your business. So we talk a lot about digital transformation. We are a next generation IT consulting and professional services practice, focused in 4 core areas: voice, network, cloud, and security. We go really, really deep in all 4 areas. We actually represent 600 different vendors in this space. So we are able to land on the exact right solution for your business requirements. Zoom is one of those 600. So at the end of the day, it's not about what vendor, what solution, it's about finding the exact right fit for your business. So a little bit about the evolution of ATC. Starting on the left-hand side is where we started, voice, and we moved into network, cloud, and security. There's a lot of acronyms on this screen. So we talk about, in the voice space, we talk about UCaaS, CCaaS, we're talking about phone systems. Network transformations, we're talking mainly nowadays SD-WAN and SASE. Cloud infrastructure, we're talking about infrastructure as a service, application modernization, private, public, and hybrid clouds. And then security, every conversation that we have today has some type of security conversation wrapped around it. The evolution of ATC, we were founded in 1999, again, started on the voice side, moved into network, moved into cloud, moved into security 3-4 years ago. But what we recognize right now, what's happening right now, is this AI waterfall that is very complicated, that nobody's understanding, and we're trying to get our arms wrapped around it to help advise our clients in all facets of AI. So we talk a lot from a consulting standpoint. Like all of our engagements include some type of digital IT road mapping. We're not a consulting organization where we come in and we advise you and then we walk away and hope the best for you. We want to be strategically advising you throughout the engagement as well as for many years into the future. So we talked about network transformation, we talked about communications, we talked about cybersecurity. In the top right is the AI and data analytics, driving faster decisions through the organization optimization and securing of data through AI. So remember those factors. That's what we're going to be talking a lot about, making the organization more efficient, more effective through the use of AI. Talked about the technology marketplace that we represent. There's 600 vendors. Again, thank you to Zoom for the keynote this morning. We have Michael here this afternoon, subject matter expert, talking about AI and how it can drive outcomes through your business. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the evolution of AI. AI, when was AI invented? Any idea?
1966.
That's when the first chatbot came out. That wasn't AI. AI was back when the first computers came out. It's processing power to automate tasks. 1966 was the first chatbot. That was amazing to me, by the way. 1966, then transformed into IBM Watson. Everybody remember IBM Watson?
Yeah.
I think I was talking to somebody earlier that said, yeah, I used to use IBM Watson. And now we are talking about generative AI chatbots. And that's the transition from basic chatbot to conversational to actually getting outcomes from the chatbot. We're going to talk about that from a voice. We're going to talk about that from a contact center or help desk perspective. But there's so much that can kind of go down that path. AI ops is a lot about what we talk about nowadays. So again, with the evolution, talking about the chatbot, just in particular, again, this is, if we're talking about AI, we're talking about this much of AI with the chatbot. There's so much more to talk about. So the transition of the AI chatbot is gone from a virtual assistant, hey, go ahead, Siri, can you schedule something for me? To driving outcomes. And I think they used an analogy earlier about, hey, there was traffic on the way to the Taste of IT. It diverted me off course to come around the backside of the conference. So that's transformative AI. That's generative AI. So I went out to CIO.com. We do a lot of research in our organization. CIO.com came up with a great list of use cases for the enterprise where you can plug in AI. And of the top 12, I think there's 12. Yeah, 12. Number 2 was voice assistant, chatbot, and conversational AI, which I was amazed as we were putting this together that was number 2. But there's tons of use cases. And I think we could probably have a whole conference talking about the use cases of AI. So I'm going to hand it over. We're going to talk a little bit about what we're seeing as the factors of AI in the enterprise, as well as some of the use cases that we're seeing downstream into the operations. Mike?
All right. So Nick just laid out a nice little history there for us. Yeah, when we talk about AI, everybody seems to think like, oh, AI is new, but it's just the storm, that's new. It's really pervasive. It's in our face all the time. There's 30 sessions on it here. Quick question for everybody. How many of you use ChatGPT at least once or Bard? Like 90% of you. Next question. How many of you in your organizations actually have policies around the use of ChatGPT or other generative AI in the organization?
A lot less.
A lot less, right? So industry average, about 80% of industries have not figured out a policy around it yet. And this kind of reminds me of the iPhone, right? BlackBerry was king in the enterprise for a long time. And the consumer market, right? Everybody got an iPhone. Everybody wanted to use an iPhone. They're like, this is cool. We're going to use this at work. And the consumer market just pushed it. And we're going to see the same thing with AI because everybody sees how easy it is. And what happened is that OpenAI really changed what we were experiencing from an AI perspective, because it was always kind of like, don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Now we have a window into it. We have an actual interface that us mere mortals can use AI, see it in our everyday lives, and that kind of makes it fun. But now it's also a challenge because we see that work. Like, I mean, it didn't take long for Zoom to be like, nobody's using ChatGPT until, we had to set policies and you have to sign disclosures about, personal and customer information before, we can even use it. So it's really important to think about that, how you're really going to let this infect, your business. But AI is much more than generative AI. It's just the easiest thing to look at right now. AI actually, business intelligence, data security are the 2 biggest pieces of the marketplace right now. Data integration is the fastest growing. So now we're looking at AI-based applications, and they can completely change the way you work. And I'm gonna go through a little case study of what we did internally at the end to show you how that works. But in order to get there, it takes a little forethought and it takes some steps, because it's not just adding something easily into your environment. So we've got 5 steps that we feel are necessary to walk through. And this is not all inclusive. It's, it's a starter kit essentially, for how you can start thinking about turning these AI-based applications into your business. So this first one, exploring what's possible. You have to know what you're trying to solve for, and this is absolutely the hardest thing to do. If you don't do this right, it won't get adopted. And we all know that introducing new technology into our processes, into our organizations, it's not done well, our employees just don't use it. It becomes very difficult. And with AI, we have to separate hype from reality. There's a big gap there as to what is perceived can be done and what can actually be delivered on. The upside, especially when you have partners like ATC that live in this space, is that they can help you pilot the tools and go out there and search for them, figure out what's best, what you're trying to solve for, because it has to all be done within a framework. If you don't have a framework, this is a good place to start, asking these kind of questions. And that can drive you towards the right tools and applications inside of your business.
So I wanted to kind of get a gauge from the audience. Like people are using ChatGPT within our organizations, but we have a good grasp on how they're leveraging AI today, whether it's within a policy or not. Like, are we capturing that? Are they coming to you ahead of time and saying, hey, I have this use case. I'm going to start leveraging this. I see some heads shaking. How are we keeping a good handle on that, of understanding what the drivers are from the organization, as well as putting policies and procedures and regulation in place to keep it from data getting outside of our organization into an LLM?
And that's a great example, right? That it directly affects how your people work. And so that's number two, is we have to look at are these AI-based applications affecting our people and processes. One thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is that we don't want to position AI as a replacement for our employees. AI is to enhance, complement the capabilities of our employees. Because that's one of the biggest things that we hear about is like, oh my God, AI is going to take my job, right? And to me, it's one of the things that's probably the furthest from the truth. It's just that we have to implement it in a way that it complements what we're already doing. When we see how AI actually works, like one of the things, I love playing with this stuff. I love just technology in general. Like, I geek out on some of these new things. So I always find it interesting when I've grown up in technology. My whole career has been in technology. I love hearing stories about these things that are outside of the technology world. My wife is an attorney. And every year, as a part of that, she has to do continuing education. She just completed this year, it's about a month and a half ago. There was a whole section of it was a class on AI in the legal field. And this was mind blowing to me. Hadn't even thought of it. And it brought forth some interesting cases, literally, because of what some of the people are doing. Like paralegals going out using ChatGPT to write motions. And now the question is, do you have to disclose that? And by the way, there's no answer to these questions. These are literally just thought-provoking questions. Secondly, and I found this absolutely mind-blowing, people are using generative AI to research a judge, find out what motions they're most likely to approve, and then write motions based on that. And so you could look at that and say, oh, AI is going to replace the paralegal. No, it's enhancing their ability to do their job. So, and that's how we want to approach people and process. We want to enhance what they can do. As Nick pointed out, like my main focus at Zoom is our customer experience solution. And just a simple part of that is when you do AI right in a contact center, like a supervisor doesn't have to be listening to phone calls all the time. They can just be alerted when there's a problem, right? I mean, that's just a super simple thing. Supervisor's not losing his job. He can now focus on other things versus just listening to calls that he doesn't have to. So once we have the people and the process in place, now we have to actually look at what we're getting information from. And we could probably do an entire section on security. This is the most dangerous part of AI-based applications. And I don't mean to say that like, oh my God, the world is, going to explode here. But it is dangerous because, I mean, even if you go and you look at ChatGPT, you look at Bard, those types of things, they disclose, right? You got to proofread what we've sent you. There's inherent bias, there's bad actors, there's bad data. And that's fine when you're just using something like ChatGPT. You can't have that in your business, right? You have to know, one, where your data is. Is it protected? How is it being used? You have to know how the models that are feeding your AI, where's that data coming from? Who has access to it? It is imperative that boundaries are created around that. AI should be looked at as another employee in your organization. So we hire somebody, we don't just hand over the keys of the kingdom, say, go nuts, right? There's always regulations, rules, processes, and AI is no different. And it has to be well-defined and governed, or else, bad things can happen.
Yeah, I just saw an example of an organization leveraging a connector tool for LLM, their internal LLM, into their security operations center, so their SOC, internal SOC. So it was leveraging or analyzing how they were leveraging the data analytics, as well as the large language model against the policy that they have wrote for governance. So it was real time, making sure that the end users were leveraging it within the confines of the governance document.
And that's a great example. And there's also a number of people as their jobs shift, right? That how your job can be seen inside of AI. We need people to train these models. So that's an example of that. It's nice here that they have something that does it automatically, but again, just always ask you, how is this answer? And that's training the model. When you look at chatbots on websites, those models are being trained. People are reviewing, or should be reviewing, those interactions to make sure that the output, is as expected. And how do you make it better? So trust, security, is imperative, because again, that AI is now your employee, and they have to be a trusted advisor inside of your organization. And what do trusted advisors do? They provide insights. That's all that AI is really doing. And insight is just machine learning combined with data. So the trick, though, with an insight is that it has to be contextually aware. It has to be delivered in a mechanism that an employee can use. It has to be presented in a time and place that is appropriate. You use the Google example, being rerouted. And that's awesome. It's one of my favorite features of any directional system, right? This is coming up. I'm going to save you this headache. Great. That's fantastic when it works. When you tell me I should have turned 2 miles ago, now we have a problem. That is not contextually aware, right? I mean, I know that's a ridiculous example, but that's what we're looking at. So when we see insights, they have to be something that is actionable in that moment, right? Next best action, again, just going back to the contact center, that's a big thing that's coming out now. How can I tell an agent what's the best thing you can do for the customer that's online? So being able to present that and bring up at a time and a place that is valuable to the employee is key with any AI-based application.
Yeah, there was an example given at the lunch keynote, or I guess it was the panel discussion, about everybody familiar with Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot. They're starting to leverage that within their Teams environment, where it will summarize a meeting and then take the notes for you. And if Tim, you had a deliverable, it'll tell you, Tim, you're going to have this deliverable, and you might not even attend that meeting. Zoom's product already has that built in. So to that experience, it's already leveraged within their product set from a meetings platform, as well as from a collaboration perspective. Big difference in cost. How much does Copilot cost?
It's like $30 a year.
It's free.
It's already included. So as developments continue to happen, There's tools out there that can be leveraged that are just a checkbox in the admin portal that can give that type of capability out to the organization, and there's no cost. It's already built into the product set.
And that's part of that is important as a message because, and not as a sales pitch, this goes for any product that you bring into your environment as AI. If the data is centralized, it's easy to control, it's easy to govern, and it's easy to integrate. So your AI has to be able, the AI itself has to be able to reach the right data, but at the same time that the data that's being produced by these applications has to be accessible by other applications, right? It's usually it's not just one thing that you're using to govern the entirety of your business.
It has to be a platform.
Right. It has to be a platform. It has to be a platform that can also integrate with other platforms, right? I've never met an organization that uses one platform for absolutely everything they do. Sure, we use Zoom, but we use Google, we use Google Workspace, I use Salesforce, and all those things have to connect. And it's amazing when it works, how much AI can actually permeate through disparate systems if you centralize your data the right way and you have the underlying mechanisms to do it. So it's valuable, and it has to be part of your master data strategy. It can't just be seen as an add-on because you want to have that underpinning throughout the entirety of your organization. So we ran through that kind of quick. I'm going to pause for a second because I've been talking a lot. I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions, thoughts, feedback. You guys nailed it. You're amazing.
What are some of the use cases that you're seeing out there? I'm curious on just from a user perspective, how are folks reporting up to you or through you that are wanting to leverage AI within the organization?
I had a user that came to me. He was getting some PowerShell scripts and then plugging them in and getting them more refined. But yeah. So I had to point him out to our policy.
So you had one.
We have policies, yeah, we were proactive about that, but I had to point them to that until we resolve. We have a lot of PII in our environment, so it's kind of difficult to just, so that was the use case.
That's a great example. You couldn't hear him. He basically was saying that employees are running code through generative AI, which is something we hear about a lot because it can enhance it, but you have to be really careful about, is your intellectual property now, all of a sudden out into space, is personal data out there. So, we see that all the time. I mean, and again, this, just keeps coming back to generative AI, but that it can do those things and it does it really well, but you got to protect yourself. And if you have the tools inside your organization to leverage the generative AI, but comply at the same time, like your example, where you can basically check what's going out before it hits it. Again, that's where you start really seeing the benefits of everything coming together.
I feel like that's where we're at right now. Like at least the individual told you. You wouldn't have known otherwise. Yeah, that's where we're at from the maturity of the AI component of LLM. Yeah.
I'm just curious. So let's say I Zoom, I'm a professor, so I Zoom my class and they watch it and I've got it recorded. And so then I figure out a way, I don't know how to do it. I run the Zoom through Chat GPT or some variant and I say, why don't you write me an exam? Could it write multiple choice questions? Yeah, I mean, that would be the first thing. And then the second is, can you direct it to only read certain things? So I take a list of articles that I want to read these, write a literature based on this.
Did you pay him for that?
I would know, but that's like the best question that I've heard all day.
I haven't been paid yet.
That man gets 2 pairs of socks on his way out. So I will tell you, I'm not an engineer, so I won't be able to answer that in depth. But what I can tell you is that you're on the right track, right? And so and I'm just thinking through this on my feet, so forgive any blank spaces. But you could have like, the meeting run, just like you said. One of the things that comes out of that, if it's enabled for you, as Nick pointed out, is we actually do meeting summarization and things like that. And that's our AI based piece. So that summarization on your class, in theory, right, you could put that in some qualifying statements through like ChatGPT or Bard, and have it ask questions based on your lecture. So you could, and I'm sure there are ways to, dive down deeper, and I'm sure there's probably tools out there that even solve that specific issue. But the path that you're thinking is exactly in line with what we're talking about.
Well, then if it can do that, then it could also do it with text. If you gave them a book chapter and you said, read this, it could do it the same thing from there.
It already happened.
Yeah, and I'll give you a live example, a real example of something I did. I wanted our product marketing team to go through all our win cases and see why we were winning. Because, our AEs are supposed to put comments in our Salesforce data about why we won that deal. So product marketing's slow. So I dumped all of the comments from all of our wins for our contact center business one day, scrubbed it. I personally scrubbed out all of any customer names, things like that, because I didn't want to run into your issue. And I dumped them into Bard and said, summarize these for me. Tell me why we're winning. And, I was literally amazed at what came back. It basically gave me a one-pager summarizing like the top 5 things of why we win, and then pulled specific examples out of the comments.
And you didn't direct it to do that. You just said, go forth. And
I said, it was you basically say something like,
Set a command.
yeah, they, using the comments below, summarize this, and this based on blah, 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 right? And that's what you get. So
It goes back to the higher education, sorry if I got it. From a higher education standpoint, there's an entire product set within the Zoom portfolio that's for higher education, as well as healthcare, as well as some other industry needs.
So to the other gentleman's point, couldn't the students then put in their lectures in his chapters and say, summarize these?
We're naive if we think they're not already doing it.
issue in education right now.
Thing too is, find me a written script to be able to break in and.
So to that point, there are tools being built to try to determine if what is handed into you is AI generated.
I'll
So
tell you why that won't work. Do the reading. I think they're gonna do the programming or whatever needs to be done to run that.
you have a question?
My students will.
I'm going to mention the designers at my company have looked into using ChatGPT or AI to do prototypes or things to put in front of the customer, and trying to decide who does that belong to at that point.
It's another great thought-provoking question that there isn't really an answer to. Is anybody familiar with Midjourney? And so Midjourney is ChatGPT for images, right? You can go in, say, draw me a picture of this, and it pops it up. And Midjourney actually says, you don't own this, right? And there's like these just streams of images of people being generated, and you can just take them and use them. So, I mean, in one way, it's like for somebody like me who has zero creativity, it's great.
I'm an
I know
artist.
you're a designer
Yeah,
now.
I'm a creative designer.
Collaborating on a PowerPoint at this man. Fantastic. But yeah, it's and these are the questions, and it's just like any other part of technology, right? We don't have answers yet because, a lot of rules and law and copyright, it just hasn't caught up because it came on fast, and we don't know, I mean, hello, Skynet. So yeah, and those are the questions that we have to be asking, especially in our organizations, right? And that goes back to exploring the possible and trust, right? The nice thing about inside an AI-based application inside an organization is that one, obviously you have more control. And if you can leverage a way to not use the free external pieces where you run into issues of, is that my property now or not? You know, now you're bringing it back home a little bit. So, anybody else? Just gonna.
Let's continue on and we'll give some more internal examples.
So this is a real case study about our contact center internally. And we basically went through these same 5 steps that we talked about earlier. We had a contact center, it was doing okay. One of the things that, chatbot that we had at the time was not our chatbot, but it was modeled pretty well. So industry average for self-service through a chatbot is around 18 to 22%. Our internal one was around 25 or 30. So, it's doing pretty well. But, now obviously we're going into the market space. We want to not only sell our stuff, but we want to use our stuff. So we implement ours and then we build around it. And so here's the vision, right? We want to have our contact center basically be AI enabled end to end. I am sure every single one of us in here knows how frustrating it is to call into an IVR or be dealing with a chatbot, provide a bunch of information, you get to an agent, first thing that happens is, and you're like, why am I here? And it sets a bad tone for everybody, right? The agent's going to be pissed, you're going to be pissed, like none of that stuff. Oh, awful. So, how do you solve this problem? Amongst many others. So we wanted AI to flow through the entirety of the workday, through your entire workflow. So it goes back to what Nick was saying. We built our AI as on top of our platform so that it permeated every part of it. So we have consistency, centralized data, trust, and it's that's to say we have our own AI, but we also do partner. So we do have our own circle of trust, and we bring these pieces in. So we built basically a whole new layer, an AI layer into our platform so that we could do this. Now, I'm not saying go out and build your own AI layers, but it's the concept that it should permeate through your organization and what you're trying to solve for. And this is what it looks like when it's real, right? So busy slide. What you want to take from here is these are all AI-enabled applications, things like the virtual agent, so you get your self-service, calendaring, insights from like workforce management, who can work when, things like that. And of course, the biggest thing is next best action. If we can track the entirety of a process and the AI is taught well enough, it can recommend actions to agents real time, can alert supervisors real time, and now we're delivering happiness, right? We go right back to the core of Zoom and delivering happiness. So what does that look like inside? These are real stats from our internal IT. We went from a 25 or 30% self-service rate to 94%. Completely ridiculous, right? I mean, I've never seen anything like that in the industry before. You're talking about saving hundreds of thousands of hours, millions of dollars. And what's neat about this is that those frontline agents, right? It's not like they all just disappeared. A lot of them are actually working to train the AI that's front-ending the bot, or I'm sorry, front-ending the service center, because you need people to do that. So again, this goes back to how do you change your people and process? How do you augment their capabilities? We did this all live internally, and we use ourselves as this use case all the time. And I mean, granted, this is all on top of Zoom, things like that, but it's the art of the possible, right? If you set the vision and you follow the steps, you can solve it in incredible ways.
Well said. That's pretty impressive on just how you got to that point. And I go back to our earlier conversation about making the organization more efficient, more effective, more optimized by supplementing the tools that you already have in place with the AI component. So I appreciate you doing this, Michael, from Zoom, from the CX platform within Zoom. What's impressive about that is that technology that he was just referencing in that case study is that free stuff that we talked about in the beginning. It's already built into the meetings platform. It's a checkbox in the admin portal. So I would challenge each of you to look at your organization, follow the 5 steps, and see how it can transform your business downstream. Because it can be, we're in a transformational period within AI, and we're going to only see it go to the moon going forward. So, technology officer at ATC, if there's any questions, we'd open up the floor right now.
So when you're saying you went to a 94% self-service, that's impressive. What specifically, in terms of automated, was the solution that got to? So I'm solving because my car is broken, so I'm going to self-serve my changing of a tire.
Right.
So one specific LOB, or was it the myriad across Zoom, callers calling in and talk to a person?
It's a myriad across Zoom. So self-service is, you're not talking to anybody.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Okay. So now again, I don't know all the back end components of it. I do. The biggest change is that we went from a third party virtual agent to our own. And then it was the level of integration, and really what it boils down to is the training. For those that don't know, about a year and a half ago, we purchased a company called Solvy. They were one of the leading chatbot builders at that time. We actually stripped it down, right? So we talk about Zoom. One of our big things is, everything is built on top of our meetings platform. So we stripped it down, rebuilt it on our meetings platform, integrated it into our environment. It was actually, so the technology is there. A lot of it is how you train it, how you model it, right? And so that kind of goes back to the people and process and the insights, right? Those 2 components are constantly evolving so that you can get to something like that. It wasn't like we flipped a switch and turned it on. I forgot exactly how long the process, took overall, but, it was exponential growth to hit that 94%.
Prior was in the 20s, and then
I think it was like 25 or 30. Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody, for attending. I think they have Zoom socks for everybody in the back of the room. Come see us at our booth right on the end.
He needs the game code for this session. It's 888292. 292. Thank you guys so much.
You should. It was like.
888292. I feel like a bingo caller. I saw you walking in. This is for my birthday.
Learning a lot. It's like Stanley County is easy.
Develop that you guys them wanting to open so to be data they're just putting out there to feedback.
Right.
They're experimenting.
And we've been confirmed. You know, so it's because the guy that was sitting right here, he's actually our security guy on our team. And so, with him and we have security policies. One time. Out there. You know, in a public account. And, you know, he had to put it on.
Right now.
And a large of our staff is with information from the state.
97.
Staff is doing services. And so we're like, "Hey, you talking about it?" I'm not talking. Like time keeping side and large copies.
No, no, no.
I mean, it is like it really. Now.
I'm actually ready.
Grading a whole.
Not forgetting out. But it could.
And we were thinking about.
Yeah.
Don't hate what I work great. How do you handle, you know, various locations that come in? Yeah, we're trying to figure it out. You're gonna afford it. So one of your clients. But.
They go everything has all this research, so I knew exactly.
And that's one of the things that kind of take into. I love about it.
We'd love to work with you guys.
So many checks and balances, everything, all the different steps, and all the checks and balances. So we have to be real careful. You know, like direction we try to go, even hiring is like, you know.
So impressed with this. We heard this Bible we had. They gave us Jesus.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yep.
Date right now.
Yeah.
I know.
And then it's citizen information and information.
Like a big
You know, one of the things that committees to do is they protect us from those types of things. You know, they don't want anything negative.
There's no
to go,
driving.
You know,
Yeah.
but so
There's the
we're
range
all
that
willing
goes
to
up
fight
here.
at the
It's very
time
much like when you get up there, it's like.
because of that. They're very conservative. Yeah. So I don't know when we're gonna really tap into this.
There's other little inroads, but you really don't
Everybody's
have to
scared.
go
When you think about it,
very much.
all they think about is they're thinking on its own and going rogue.
Close there.
You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, all right.
we try to find a
They
day
did.
that way so that,
Yeah.
okay, hit everything that's up here, hit
Down
everything that's
to
here, hit everything.
What you're into.
other ways that we can kind of, that, you know, that won't go
You know,
wrong.
we-
That's the
sometimes when
thing
you take
that
it,
Nick's been doing.
you don't just show.
Yeah, I can't get the CFO buy-in. So he has to go and basically do education. Like,
Yes.
It was nice.
our organization, what we do,
Four of us.
still roots, but it's completely taken a turn in the sense of like, water is consulting, literally have nothing to do,
Okay.
because there is just so much misinformation and then like, don't know what you don't know. And manage people, they're doing their job. Like.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do, looking at. Would have been else to be. Yeah, yeah. I know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. The one side, Jerry.
116, yes.
The other thing I would say, we also do on the geocache.
Yeah.
Okay, that will always take you to places that just like this one. We went to this one place at point two down to Florida. And took me to a place.
So
That is the other side of the ocean, that was anywhere else. So even if you don't participate or do it, you're losing just take. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Are we connected on LinkedIn?
You see, whatever.
Yeah.
Take that.
Okay. Bye. Got right.
You're that's right.
You came in.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I was about to.
Okay. I'm okay with
Lily,
it.
he's our.
What did you think?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Because we just.
Past that. I know, but it was fascinating. I mean, we learned how to plant. It's grown there, and this farm does. White pineapple. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but it's a lighter color. It's very delicate.
Yeah.
It doesn't transmute.
Especially when we're talking about small, they.
Really ate all.
Yeah.
They take it in. We actually.
Well,
That it was.
you know,
Big. Yeah, I would just say.
Get to pick it in. So, you know, suspected various times as our we came back to the date. But. And they had a really cool talk.
All right.
You send your presentation ahead of time?
No, I was actually wanting to plug in. I have a Google Docs.
But I would say.
I'm gonna jump into the Teams meeting then.
Yeah.
But we're just gonna have to do it a
I-
little bit.
And
We can't just do that.
Because it just
HDMI
takes.